So we left from where, right? Last time. I'm sorry, guys, if someone has come today, right? You need to follow the class from the first, or else this is like, I think it's almost more than a month now. So almost we have covered more than 9+ hours, even if we say 2 hours every week, right? So you need to look from the start. Okay, so but still I will explain you the situation in case if you even come today, you should be able to understand what it is, right? So today, guys, what my thought is, I wanted to take that web form thing, but as I was just starting this class 10 minutes back, right, I thought that I should not take new topic today. I should try to first finish that issue what we had previously. Remember SQL Server with MVC, right? And I should give more focus on debugging. Remember last time we had talked about debugging as well, that how if in case there are issues, how to debug. Today I want to also take the debugging to the next level, talk about event viewers, right? If in case if there's an issue, how to see an event viewer. That is one part. Second, I think the biggest part which I missed out here, and I will need it now, I hope so I get those errors, is networking. How did I miss that, right? So I think, like, because if you see at this moment, we have two containers. We have not created them into a network. So they are into their own network. So how to take these two Dockers and bring them into a network? So, so how to see the errors, how to see these things, and how to fix it, right? So that demo which I left last week, right? I think I will complete that demo today. If that completes in 15 minutes, it is good. If that completes in 30 minutes or 1 hour, then tomorrow we start with web form. So that is my plan, right? And you will come to know as I do the demo, you'll come to know that that good that I have taken a new topic. And we had Entity Framework Core. So we had deployed this application. I will just try to remind you what we were doing. So this was the Docker MVC core with EF code. This was the application. And we were doing code first. So if you remember, we were doing code first and we were using environmental variables. I hope. Can everyone just say yes, hello? Yes, we remember environmental variables. Our connection string was passed into the environmental variables. I'm to reconnect to the last session, right? So if you remember, in our startup.cs file, we had this app setting.json and we said add environmental variables and we took the value from that and we created the environmental variables by using the compose file. So if you remember, we had gone ahead and we had this compose file. In that compose file, we had this SQL connection. So if you see out here, I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. This SQL connection, which was into app settings, right? Where did it go? I don't know. So I think here I removed that SQL connection just to show you, but in online it is there. Huh? So in the app config, it is there. And this SQL connection we are passing as environmental variables. And this code out here ensures that if you don't have the connection string in the app settings, he will take it from the environmental variables. That means in our case, we had put it out here like this, right? What happened? So here in the advanced setting, if you remember, we had gone here and somewhere we had SQL connection. I think here, there it is. We have a system variable and we have this user level variable. If you put the system variable, it will take from the system variable. If you have a user variable, it will override that, right? So this was overridden and it was taken from there. Now for the Docker, to create an environmental variable, we use this Docker compose command out here, right? And what we tried doing is, I can again do that. So this was the instance created. Remember, this was the instance. Let me show that. So this instance. So we went ahead and we used the Docker compose command and we created the instance, right? And because in the environmental variable, we had said localhost, which definitely we should not use localhost. We should use the IP address, right? So this one here, this one should be the IP address of the SQL server, right? So what we will do is we will go to the SQL server. So let us go to SQL server. Let us get the So SQL Server instance is already running. So let us go to the SQL Server terminal. So let us log into the terminal, get the IP of this, right? So let us get the IP address of this. What happened here? Why is this so blank? Right. If not here, open in external terminal. So I will just say here ipconfig, and this is where the SQL Server is running. We can just check that this SQL Server IP address is proper. 172.29.43.63. I don't know, it's not allowing me to copy. These ones are the old instances. I can just remove them. So some old instances are still connected. So I'll just say connect. And remember, our SA password was enabled. Last time, I don't know, nobody pinged me up and said that you have never enabled Windows authentication. And I was trying to change in SQL Server. I wanted to change I should have changed in the web application. So we'll come to that. So 172.29.43.63. Let us see. At least this connects from here. 172.29.43.63. Okay. Now, and our password was password @123. So if we are able to connect this from here, that means that our SQL Server is running, right? 146, right? And we should be able to connect from our web application as well, right? Isn't it? So what happened? This should not take so much time. $172.29.43.63. What is it? Strange. Let me see my SQL Server is running also or not. My SQL Server instance is running. Let me do like that again. Let me just restart it. I don't know what happened. Let's see if this connects. See, these are the things actually, which I want you to feel that when you're doing these demos out there, when you're doing these practicals, right? These are the problems. So let me stop this. And let us start it. And let me go and again check the IP address, because if I restart it, I don't know if the same IP address is there. You can see it is running on 1433 port, which is good. I don't know why this terminal is coming blank. So I have to come into my external terminal. Hmm. 29.44.139. Okay. I knew IP address. Okay. I can use localhost also, but I just want to check by using IP address first. It was connected. So what happened? Why did my IP address did not work? I don't know. Fine, it worked now. If something works, it works, right? Fine. So this is the IP address of SQL Server. Okay. That is what I would like to give it out here, isn't it? In my compose, I would like to give 179. This IP address, so that I'll just copy from here and paste it into the compose file. And I had first initially given localhost, but now I'm giving this, right? So this connection, this is my environmental variables, and it is in the compose file. I will go here and we will create the instance. Remember the command docker compose up y-d. -d means we don't want you to keep waiting. Just go ahead and exit it. Or else what it does is it actually starts writing to the log file. If you don't give -d, it will take a lot time, to create the instance, right? If you want to do logging, then you should use -d. But if you think no, like everything is okay, you can just go ahead. So I'll just do that. Now remember, inside I had given the name in my compose file as I did not give any name actually. So my name he took as Docker MVC Core app, right? Which is whatever is the folder name. He will take it small because it is Linux system. And you can see the notation ahead, hyphen web app hyphen one, right? So he has just added some qualifiers out there. You can always go and you can always give here a container name inside this, and it will take the container name what you have given, right? So that is fine. So I'm here now in my containers back again. That is where it is. You can see Docker MVC Core hyphen web app one. Please understand, huh? It is not Docker MVC Core app one, Docker MVC Core hyphen web app one, right? So if I run this, I will get an error, definitely, right? So you can see that it is running. It's running in Internet Explorer. I will get an exception. The point number one, which now in my mind is that if I get an exception, I would like to see that exception, right? So one of the ways I told to see the exception is that you go ahead, enable debug equal to true and so on. But what if you put everything in the compiled mode and you say, no, I want to go and see what the error is using an event viewer, for example. I want to go and see in the event viewer, right? So let us see how to do that. And very quickly, I would like to also check my environmental variables out here. Please note. So to check the environmental variables, you can go here and you can say inspect, and you can see there it is. Good, so he has set this, and this is some test. So that is the environmental variables right out there. And let's go. So you can see there is an error. There's some issue out there. One is he says that enable the std out message, which I've already talked in the previous part of the video, how to go and enable the message. But now the thing comes is, no, like I don't want to enable messages. I want to see the event viewer, right? Now to see the event viewer, what we can do is we can use PowerShell, right? Remember, your only friend here when you want to go and do something is the command prompt, right? So let us go again back to the command prompt of the MVC Core application. So terminal, remember command prompt is your friend, please note, right? So I'll go here, and now I can go and I can start executing your PowerShell. So I have to only figure out now PowerShell command of how to get the event viewers, right? The messages. So what we can do is we can get the last 5 messages. Okay, so let us try to get the last 5 messages. So what I'll do is I can use straightforward this get event log, right? And I can say I want to go ahead and get the first 5 messages from the event log. So let it paste. Does it go? Let us not take 20 message. It is too big. So let us take the first 5 message at least, right? Now you can see there is this error here. It is 1:15. Sorry, June 15:41. So that means that is the error I'm looking at. 15:41, or must be even the first one, MSTTC, I don't know what, right? But this is definitely where the errors I can see. Okay. So that means but you can see again, like it is that the whole message is getting truncated out there. So must be what we can do is we can go ahead and say that expand the message. See, now it is all about Googling and getting these things. It is not that I knew all these things. I just Googled it out and I just try to get those messages out expanded, so that it is expanded message. So I don't want 20. 20 is too big. Must be we can just get 5. So enter, right there it is. That is quite expanded now. I can see all error, but let's go from the top, right? Because these can be old messages. So let us go at the top. All ASP.NET Core errors over here. Okay, let us go out here, and this is here, cannot be found. I think Microsoft, I think that is Microsoft DTC, which is distributed transaction coordinator, right? Something like that. What is it doing? So you can see first thing it's saying the network path cannot be found. So that means that the web application is not able to ping SQL Server. The network is not connected. Both of them are in a different network. Means what I mean to say is that this container, so let me come to the problems. This MVC Core app and SQL instance are in a different container, right? So this message clearly says that, okay? We can test that as well, by going to the command prompt, right? For example, this was our command prompt. Suddenly it gets this. You can see there's a command prompt that is not coming. So what I can do is from here, I can try to ping SQL Server. So if the ping does not, remember, I'm in the command prompt of that container. I've gone through this. I've gone through here. Sorry. I've gone through this terminal, and I said open in external terminal. So this is where I am, right? So from here, I should be able to ping to SQL Server. If it is not, then everything fails, right? So even if you do essay, if you do password, whatever, right, everything fails. So I'll just paste it out here. Let us see, paste. Can I ping from here? So I can see that I cannot ping. So that is the exception, right? So this is how you go and see the exception and the event viewer. So that's again, one more point I want to. So we have to go and create a network, right? Now to create a network, what you can do is that you can use simple commands, very, very simple commands. We have two containers now, MVC core container and SQL container. So we have to just create a container and add it, create a network and add both of them, right? And restart the container. Very easy it is. So point number one, to create a network, you can say Docker network create container, the network name, Docker network create. Now remember that we are in Windows. So in Windows, this command will not work. So what we can do is we can use this NAT, because in Windows we have NAT out here. So we'll use this Docker create. For example, if you try to fire this is the Linux command, but if you just try to fire it. Now remember, whenever you're firing commands, don't fire from their command prompt. You have to fire from your command prompt, not from the command prompt of the Docker, right? So this is your command prompt. From here you will fire. So I'll go here, I'll say Docker create network, right? And because this command is meant for non-Microsoft, for Linux specifically, it will probably tell me to, you can fire this command if you have a plugin. So if you use the Linux plugin and if you keep it installed, you can still fire. You can see it says, I'm not finding this plugin, this and that, right? So let us use the command, which is the Windows one. So I just showed you the error. Huh? You can get this error. Don't get confused. Try to figure out the Windows one. So there it is. I have created a network. The network name is Docker Container Communication. The network name is Docker Container Communication. We have two instances at this moment. One is the SQL instance. The name is the SQL instance 1. So this we want to add, right? So we will say add SQL instance 1 to this network. And we also have another instance out here, which is the MVC Core Web App 1. So this one here, I would like to add to container 2. So with that, what will happen is both of them will come in one network, isn't it? So let us do that. So I'm going to go and copy paste this quickly. So we have added we have created a network. So let us go ahead and add it out here. SQL instance 1, right? The second one is the web app 1, right? So with that, these guys will come into one network, right? I don't know if we had covered networking previously. I'm sorry, if that has become duplicate. I don't think we created networking. Did we? Please put down on the chat. Did we cover networking? Right. Okay. Even if you have not covered, I have to taken it again today. Okay. Sorry for the double learning you have to do. So you can see I'm also saying that, okay, MVC Core app, you also get added and they are both into one network. Let's inspect this network. Is SQL instance 1? First, we'll restart the containers, because now I'm not sure. Because the IP address has to take place, it has to, IP address has to be allocated and so on, right? So let me just start them once. And what we'll do is we will go ahead and we will inspect that network. We'll say that in this network, do we find both of them there? Remember, guys, today, whatever demo I'm taking over here, I remember I was teaching Docker 4 years back, 3 years back. Believe me, we did not have this desktop also. So today, commands I'm showing out here, you will probably find that these commands are outdated after a certain time. Please understand. So you will say no, like they will probably give a very nice GUI. They will say add a network. I don't know how the time will go ahead. So remember that these commands can become obsolete as new Docker desktop is released and they started giving you new things out there, right? You can see there's an add extension out here also. Try this. In the add extension, you will get some extension which says, okay, get me the way to configure this, and then suddenly you don't probably want, what steps I'm showing, right? But my goal here is to just check that you understand that these are the commands which are firing at the backend, right? So it is possible that these things can get obsolete, but I think still knowing them is good, right? So there it is. You can see now 2 containers. Look at that. Look at that thing. Docker MVC Core app, web app 1 is allocated IP address 119.179 and SQL instance 1 is allocated this. Very good, right? So now let us try to again ping SQL Server. So I'm going to go and say 170. I don't know why it does not allow me to copy. 172.20.124.39. It's changed again, huh? 20. So let us check this one here. And we'll try to ping this IP address from the web app 124.39. Right? I just want to check that if my SQL server is able to connect. If he is able to connect, then we can ping from the web. Fine. So that it is, right? This is the IP address. So let's copy that 124.39. And now let us go back again to our terminals, right? So let us go back to our web app 1 and let us go here and let us go to details, opening a terminal, right? And let us ping from here. Now I should be able to ping there. And from there, I should be able to ping here, right? So TikTok, right? Very good. Very nice. Now we are able to do that, right? Okay. Logically moving it. I say, okay, very nice. We are able to do that. Now change the IP address and it should work. Why not, right? But there was one question which came in the last class. Someone said that, sir, can't we now go and change the environmental variables, right? Remember? So now, if you see what I will do, I will delete this container and redeploy it, right? So the next question would be in your mind is that, can you go somewhere here? Do we have something out here and change the IP address? So can I go out here and can we change this to this IP address 14 whatever, right? So can we do that, from here? So, so the point is this, I want to change this value, right? Now there are problems in this, right? So let me point out to you some, now, frankly, in the last at least 2 years, if I'm not wrong, Docker has not given any way to do it. Docker has not given any way to do it. I'll just point you out to some readings out here. You can have a look at here. So if you look at this, allow Docker start to take environmental variables. We want that when you run the Docker, you should be able to run it, right? And what, the sad situation is, at least to my best knowledge, because this question came up in the class, to my best knowledge, there is nothing, I guess so, directly, right? But there are workarounds for it, which we can discuss, but I won't be doing this workaround. But if I'm not wrong, right, it is 2020, we are missing it. And then if you go down, what they are asking is, they are saying that, can the Docker run command, the way we have when in the Docker, when we say Docker build, Docker compose, we can pass the environmental variables. Is there any way in the Docker run we can pass it, right? But at least, I can see that they have not provided the support, and it's quite sad. I can see the last, if I can see the last message out here, I don't think, so still +1 for this feature. So this feature is not available. But what we can do is, let me know if anybody can think about something creative, the way to do it. I'm sorry, I have not read any messages. Okay. Why do you need to create SQL instance inside the Docker? You don't have to, right? You don't have to create. I've just shown it as an example, right? If you want your SQL server to be outside, that is good. See, remember, so I'll come to that. I'll come to all the questions. My question here is that, that those variables which you see out there, is there any creative way you can think about, because remember, we can run PowerShell. Please remember, we can run PowerShell from here. So I was just thinking, I have not done it, but I was just thinking that in this PowerShell, if I can get the PowerShell commands to run here, saying set environmental variables, I think, it will go and set the Docker container variables. I feel so. Because what I found out here also, many people who gave the solution, look at this, guys. It's a 7 years old request, guys. This is not existing. I can see one message here, sir. There should be something. No, there is not. I don't know why there is no nothing, but there is no. But I found that one resolution which somebody gave out here, and that resolution actually is nothing but running through the command line. So yeah, there it is. Somebody gave a resolution, and should have kept that resolution with me. Everybody voted for the resolution, but that resolution does the same. Right. So somewhere here, somebody gave a Docker execute command, if I'm not wrong. Execute. Sorry for hunting like that. Right. The Docker execute command. What the Docker execute command does, it actually goes and runs something in the command line, right? Now we don't have to do all that, but we can go here and figure out, I'm sure that there should be commands in PowerShell, which you can Google around, and you can say that go and set the environmental variable. That is one way of doing it, but I will not do that now. What I will do is I will recreate the container. I didn't want to do it, but let me do that. Okay. But there is no way to go and change that environmental variables on runtime. Either you do something like this by using PowerShell, or you do by using command prompt also. I think through command prompt also, there should be some way to go and change the environmental variables, right? So what I will do for now here, I will just respect that there is no feature given. I will delete it and let me recreate it, right? And when I recreate it, what I will do is I will put this IP address into my compose file, right? I'll come to that question of why have we done SQL Server inside? So we'll use inside Docker. You don't have to, huh? This is one. Hang on. This one. Was this the same? Yeah. So this is the IP address, and we have to give here the user ID and password. So remember, I think now even the Windows authentication will work because, but you are not in the same Active Directory. You are not in the same Active Directory. How is that user ID and password? Data source. I just forgot the syntax. Connection string. Sorry, I'm very weak memory. Windows. Oh, sorry, SA. If somebody has it, please give me. This one, this connection string. So bad. Now, some people remember this connection string. I can't. I'm so sorry. I can't remember it. So you need to just give user ID and semicolon and password, and that's right. Fine. Let me do that. So this is not necessary. And so our user ID was SA. And password. Please correct me. I should not make a mistake here. Now remember, you shouldn't be putting these kind of naked things like this. Please try to use key vault encryption, something out there, right? So password P capital, semicolon, fine. This is good. So with that, now everything is good. So I can ping the network. I've added them into one network, right? I'm now using the Docker Compose, and I'm expecting that everything should be good. Okay. So let me go to that file out here where our file was. Docker Compose file. Where did I change? This is, for some reason, this whole, when I click on this, not down below in the taskbar, something is not good. We had these applications. Now I don't remember if this one was it or this one was it. Where did I change it? Okay, change here. Okay, let me take this. Okay, so let us go out here. So sorry for this, and let us fire that command. Right. Remember Docker Compose. It's doing something. So the Docker Compose command was as follows. Docker compose and this command, I'll take it. Remember, please take this notepad. So we have a Word document where all the syllabus, whatever I've covered, we have the source code also given. And every source code is like, with IIS, without IIS, with SQL Server, without SQL Server, right? So you can understand the different situations by which you can. So I'll go out here and I'll say, okay, paste it. See. Okay, good. So guys, today's whole point of this exercise was, I know that I'm jumping here and there. The point was, to show you that when you start with Docker, and if you're doing Docker yourself, if you're not using Azure, what issues you can face, right? And even when you're in Azure also, guys, at the end of the day, you have to know these things. If you don't know it, right, and if something happens bad and you have to check, then you have to know which commands to fire, isn't it? Chalo, good. Now, there it is. This is running. The first thing is, right, so let us go ahead and run. So I'm going to go and open the application. And so waiting for localhost. I hope everything goes right. Or else again, we have to go event viewer. Again, we have to see if the IP address is right or not. So sad. I don't want to do it. But I hope you got the idea of how to figuring out the error. This should not take so much time. If it's taking so much time, there is a problem. My connection string was right. Password at the rate 123. Something is wrong. He's searching the network. We all know that as a .NET developer, something is not right. Okay. Guys, okay. Again, I had to do, but remember, this should work, guys. This should work. I will not go more in detail into it. I don't know why I'm not able to ping it. What happened? What mistake did I do? Messy, huh? Can't I ping SQL Server still? I did not add to the network. I'm so sorry. So we created a new instance, right? The old instance, we deleted it. Old man. Means. So if I do a Docker inspect, you can see in the inspect, I can see only SQL instance 1, and I don't see that thing, right? So how about going and adding the web app 1? So command is right out here. Web app 1, Docker MVC core web app 1, Docker MVC core web app 1, same one. Right, there it is. Okay. Let me restart my Docker again because MVC core 1. Let's restart. I hope everybody is following what I'm trying to do. And this one can be like a live POC, what you're saying. Because sometimes when you see someone struggle, right? So half of the knowledge you have got it, isn't it? So if you're seeing me struggle, that means that the same struggle you will go through. Let me go back to my Internet Explorer and let us try to refresh because I'm on the same thing. Refresh. Internet Explorer. This is so old, isn't it? I have to install Chrome here, but like it is still doing something. We'll see now. It ran. Thank you. It ran. Now, if it runs, right, one of the things what I am expecting is that he should create that database. Please note that some DB you can see our MVC core ran, right? EF core ran, and he should create that table, which is out there, the EF migration history and the TPL custom, right? So that I know that there were too many steps out there, too much confusion, but I hope you must have got idea, right? Right. So what did we do? I'll just try to summarize what we have done, and then I will go to questions. That's why I did not want to take anything new today. I didn't want to take any kind of new class today. So what I did, right, guys? First thing, we wrote the EF core out here, right? Remember, our code first is built inside the code. Please understand. Our creation of the database is built inside the MVC core application. So if you remember, we had said here, ensure created, right? So that means that if the database is not created, ensure it is created. Now, in this, I want to talk some best practices, right? I will not only speak those best practices, but I will demonstrate tomorrow. Some people don't like this. Some people say, no, like don't put it as a part of the main code base. Create a separate console application. Some people want to do that. Some people say, no, like what we'll do is we'll fire from outside. .NET EF, do this, .NET EF migration. So some people want to run from the command prompt, right? Now, everybody has his own way of doing it. I do like the separate console application or the separate application concept. Because why? Then the database creation is happening separately. Your migrations are stored separately. If you want to do some seeding, if you have heavy data, huge amount of data, right? Then it is loaded as a separate process. So sometimes, if you say, I want to load country master and state master and all that, then your application will start very late, isn't it? So must be you can make that as a different process. So we did this. After that, we wrote a compose file. If you remember, that compose file had all the details of creating the application, right? And also it had a connection string. This connection string, we passed it as an environment. We went ahead and we added the 2 IP addresses into one network. And whenever there was an error or whenever there was an issue, right, we use the event log, to figure out the issues. So we said event log, and to create the network, remember, Docker network create NAT in case of Windows, or Docker network will do in case you are in Linux. Then we added the Docker network to instance 1, Docker network another to instance 2. And if you want to remove the network, you can say disconnect or remove. If you want to go and see the list of network, you can say network ls. And if you want to go and see the issues in the event viewer, you can say get event log. And you can use the expand property to read it properly, right? So that's pretty much for today. Let me know any questions out there. Any queries? Let me go back to the main thing. Okay. Right, good question. So I'll start from top bottom below. If we can store in the Azure app configuration, absolutely. See now, guys, at this moment, I'm teaching you Docker, not from the Azure perspective. Good question, good input out here. So the input here is, let me put out here, that if you can store this into Azure configuration, absolutely. As a best practice, you should be using Key Vaults, you should be using some configuration storage out there and doing it, right? But at this moment, I wanted to just show it how it is done locally. But as a best practice, if I'm creating my Azure, or if I'm creating my Dockers on Azure or on cloud, right, I would be using their own configuration. So yes, you are right, Pijus, but I have not taken this for now, right? Because I'm doing it locally. I'm in my local computer, right? Remember, this is a Docker basic class. So, and I think, when you go online, right, it is quite easy, isn't it? If you go to Azure and if you say tick, 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 you won't learn Docker actually. So here, this is more of a Docker hardcore class. I don't know how do I say it, right? Space after the connection string. So I think, Ravi, I fixed it. Okay, let us do that. Okay, let us take this question. Very genuine question from Mohit. So remember, guys, I'm not an expert. You can see that how I was struggling. Only that, yes, I have done some Docker configuration. So must be I am a teacher. I can teach you. But remember that I'm not an expert out here and I have still more to learn. So if you are creating Docker image, it means all data is inside the image inside and becomes huge. So we divide. See, I think last time I discussed your MDF files and LDF files should not be a part of the Docker image, Docker instance. Your MDF and LDF should be mapped outside. So if you remember last time, we looked into how to go and map your mount files, how to mount your directory inside Docker. So if you remember, we had used this mount out here. So if you remember, when we create an instance, what you can do is you can say map my volume, my external volume to my internal volume. And when you create the database, you create inside that volume. So in case if there is some issue with the SQL Server instance, you still have a hold of your MDF and LDF, right? So to answer that question, definitely, if it is very huge, guys, if it is a very huge load and all that, don't use Docker instances. Then you have to do some load balancing. You have to, there are other ways of doing it, right? So Docker is good, when you want to quickly start it, you want to quickly run it, right? If you want to use Docker, for that kind of scenario, then you have to have a load balancer at the top of it. You have to have Kubernetes on the top of it and many other things, right? So keep the file outside. Can we deploy the variables in Azure DevOps? Absolutely, you can. Yes. So when you're deploying Docker, see, at the end of the day, so can we do in the Azure DevOps pipeline, you can deploy? Absolutely. Because see, at the end of the day, we are passing the environmental variables from outside. We are passing it in the compose. So that compose file, if you want, either if you don't want to use the compose file, you can just say -e. So there is something called as a -e for environmental variables. You can pass it from outside. You can run this Docker command as a simple command, from your DevOps. So absolutely you can. In the last class, you showed a YAML file for passing connection string. Yes, Amit, you are right. That YAML file is the console file. Is the compose file, I'm sorry. So the question here is, the last time I showed a YAML file. Yes, I can't copy. That's a problem. Right. In the last class, I showed a YAML file. Yeah, that is the YAML file. This one is a YAML file, the compose file, right? Because I didn't want to go and say Docker run --name, --port, and -e. So I just put everything in the compose file. Right. Let us see. I will now go from the top. Please let me go from the top. Okay. Because I'm taking from the... Sir, is this IP address static or dynamic? It is dynamic, Amit. The IP address is dynamic. Okay. Sir, may export IP vary, external IP may vary. Yes. I mean, like the no, this IP, yeah, the external IP. If you want to, this is not a public IP address. Please understand, at least to my best knowledge, it would be a local IP address. So if you want to assign a public IP address, that is different. At this moment, they are belonging to the local network. Sir, we installed, yeah. So yes, Amit, that we are done. So do not SQL Server port number requiring. No, you don't need SQL Server in the connection string. Port numbers, you don't need it. SQL Server by default runs in 1433. If you change 1433 port to something, then in the SQL connection string, you will need to specify the port. So can you show how the network creation is? I've joined late. Okay, so I think that's pretty easy. I've just shown it, but I can just revise it. Yes. So if you want to create a network, if you Google, you'll get all this. What you will not get in Google, the struggle which I showed today, that you won't get in Google, right? So network create the network, right? So create the network, Docker network create, name of the network, and then Docker network connect to instance 1, connect this network to instance 2, and that's it. And restart your Docker. Okay, let us see what more questions are there. Okay, I'm starting from the top now, or else. Okay, why did you create? I wanted to answer this. Why did you create instance inside the Docker? It's a good question. Frankly, as a good practice, you shouldn't use SQL Server inside Docker, right? But what happens is there are some instances, like for example, if you're doing development. Now, for development, you would like to just run an instance of SQL Server, which is SQL 2019. Somebody has a SQL Server 2022. So you want to run the instance connected, right? So for that, it is good. Or else I would prefer to install SQL Server on the main host machine. Taking risk on a database does not sound good, right? But see, again, like, there are people out there who say, no, like, let the SQL Server instance be inside Docker, but let the MDF be outside. And the thought there is, that they want to just spawn up a SQL Server instance. If something becomes corrupt, they want to spawn it up, attach the MDF file, and done. So, for example, for a SaaS model, if you say you have an application out there and you say that when you deploy the application, you want to deploy its IaaS, you want to deploy its separate SQL Server, Docker SQL Server, there is no answer for that, right? So I think there are scenarios, where you would like to take SQL Server inside Docker, right? Okay. Or else, as a best practice, if you're going in production, simple need you have, please keep SQL Server on the host machine. Please put IaaS inside your Docker, right? Because if the code goes, you can always build and deploy. If the data goes, there is no control Z on the data. That's, you will see that saying in the market. There is no control Z on the data. Once you lose it, it is gone. So must be, if you won't we won't want to take the risk. What about security? We will see that later on. For volume purpose, can we use Azure data storage? Yes, you can use Ravindra, but Azure data storage will not run inside Docker. Please understand. Azure data storage, to my best knowledge, it is only on Azure, where you have that queue, you have blobs, you have containers, you have tables, you have files, but it is not an RDBMS. Even the table out there is not an RDBMS. So this is inside the Docker. How can we deploy? Yeah, we'll see that. Piyush, one very good suggestion out here. Sir, take this. Why don't you take this and put it on Docker Hub? Yeah, Docker Hub aayega. Docker Hub is there coming. Don't worry. Hub. Right. Okay, guys, I think I've answered most of the questions, right? So what we have covered today, I was forced to add networking. I mean, like, this should have been with a part of the main syllabus, but somehow I realized that without networking, I cannot connect with MVC Core and SQL Server. The second, I talked about you cannot change the environmental variables, but remember, think about PowerShell. Must be that is one way of doing it, right? The next thing is I talked about the errors. If you want to go and see the errors, one is again like you can see the event logs, right? And also we saw how to make the network, and we also looked into the limitations of the environmental variables. So today, guys, I wanted to take the new topics, but I thought that I should focus on this topic and finish. You can see we just have 10 minutes for now, but in this, the whole demo took more than 30-40 minutes, right? So, right. So if you stop, I'll take this. There are two questions here. If you stop and restart SQL Server, yes, the IP address can change. SQL Server instance, if you restart, I don't think the IP address will change. It will not change. But if you restart the instance, you just saw that the IP address does change. Right. So this will take so much time to practice. Absolutely, it will take, guys. Right. I'm coming before you. You see that I'm failing so much. So you have to practice. See, the whole goal of this 1 hour training to everyone, I want to say, is that the whole 1 week you are busy, right? Full 5 days, 6 days, whatever, 5 days you are busy. At least 1 hour for learning you should take out, right? So the goal here is that I coming online is, if you see, if somebody has been sitting for the Docker lectures from 1st of this month, uska Docker ho gaya, his Docker has been completed till a certain extent. So I would say that do this kind of a nibble learning, right? But please practice also. Try to take out one time, chalo, let's do Docker. Let us run it. Let us see what happens. So one hands-on has to be done, but it is okay. If you don't do hands-on, it is okay, right? Okay. You do not need to define any Docker net and define any network. Docker, I'll take this. You do not need to define any network. Docker Compose will. No, Docker Compose does not define. Docker Compose, what it does is, I'll take the last question again. I can't, you have written so much, right? One revision session is required. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is required. Must be next week. We can take the revision session. So you don't need to define any. See, the Docker Compose is where you write in the command prompt Docker run -- port -- this -- that, right? So Docker Compose is to just see that you don't have to write that much hyphens. Whatever you're writing in the command prompt, all that parameters are in the file. That's what it is. It does not define a network. To define the network, you have to fire those commands out there. So Ravi, Docker Compose does not do it. If you remember, I've done it as a separate part of my command line. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.